Hello everyone and welcome to Cinderful Gaming. I hope you're all doing well, I hope you're all staying safe, and most of all, I hope you're all fighting that war against the grey. Today's video, we're going to look at a start collecting video, and we're going to look at how we can start collecting a Kruleboyz force using the Extremis starter set. Now, I want to start by first of all saying you can use these ideas and thoughts we put into this video when you're starting with many of the other different ways to start collecting Warhammer Age of Sigmar 3rd edition. You will get all the models in this set in the Dominion box set if that's what you've picked up, but you'll also get most of these models in the one down from the Extremis set, the second largest starter set model, and you'll get all these models and some slight changes to them in the smallest one. But you can definitely use all those sort of ideas to build your force around this and just sort of get them in that initial sort of phase of starting collecting your Kruleboyz army. So what we're going to do today is we're going to look first of all at what's inside this box set, what it gives us, what we can do with it, and then we'll look at units and how we can expand upon this with some more units from the Kruleboyz range and indeed Auric Warclans as a whole. But at the end as well, we will also put a little sample army list to get some ideas in your head of how to start putting together a list for Kruleboyz and getting an army playable on the tabletop. So let's start off. First of all, we've got a Swamp Caller Shaman with Potgrot. First of all, this is one of the best miniatures in the Kruleboyz range. Kruleboyz have an army-wide rule where if they roll a 6 to hit, they do an amount of mortal wounds equal to the damage characteristic of their weapon and the attack sequence ends. This means weapons with a damage characteristic of more than one are really deadly. Things like Bolt Boys, which we'll get talking about later, that have damage to shooting attacks can do 2 mortal wounds if they roll a 6 to hit. Even things like your Gut Rippers can do a 6 to hit on a mortal wound. They have 2 attacks each, so you know, they've got a 33% chance to actually do a mortal wound in there, which is really nice. Now this rule doesn't apply to mounts unless other specifically stated otherwise, and it doesn't apply to any Hobgrot units or any Grot units in the army either. Speaking of Grot units, we do have 10 Hobgrots, and while they don't get the benefit of the Kruleboyz Allegiance ability Venom Encrusted Weapons, which is the mortal wound ability, they are a really useful unit. First of all, they are dirt cheap. They don't have much of a save, they don't have much bravery, and they don't really have much of anything, but they do provide some good chaff and some good screens for your more expensive and more deadly Auric units. One cool thing that the Hobgrots do have though is they do have access to their little scrap grenades. These are not the most accurate of weapons, but they are red 1, damage 1, which is pretty nice to have for a decent small range shooting attack. This means if people charge your screens, you can actually unleash hell with the Hobgrots and potentially do a little bit of damage. You're going to probably be needing like 5s or 6s to hit in those instances, but that is well worth it. You can definitely get through a couple of wounds on an unleash hell with these little Hobgrots. Lastly, we've got our unit of Kruleboyz Aurics. This is a unit of Gut Rippers. These are our base standard infantry for the Kruleboyz. In this particular box set, you do only get the option to build the Kruleboyz with the stickers and the shields, so you won't get the axe options or any of that inside this box set. You will just get the options that are shown here, but that's pretty cool. Stickers, I do think, are the better weapon option. The fact that Kruleboyz and the Gut Rippers here have 32mm bases means they really do need that 2-inch reach to get all the models in their unit into combat. The 1-inch reach on the other weapons, while you do get a little bit of rend and all that sort of stuff, it really doesn't sort of compare when you're really with these Gut Rippers fishing for 6s to do those mortal wounds. Definitely the better option is in this starter set. But where can we go after we've got that initial box set? And so let's look at some options we have for the Kruleboyz in the range. First of all, we've got the different types of bosses and shamans available to us throughout the entire range of Kruleboyz. We've got here the Sludge Raker Beast and the special named character one as well in the picture here. But we've also got the Killer Boss on Gnashtooth and Killer Boss on foot with the amazing Stabgrot. Stabgrot can stab that. And then we've also got other things like the Merknob with Belcher Banner, we've got the giant Vulture model as well, and our cool named character Shaman. All of these models provide some amazing buffs to your armies, and the heroes really do a lot for the army with the Kruleboyz. Things like the Merknob and the Belcher Banner, here where he gives a 5-up ignore spell ability to units near him, or the Killer Bosses and their ability to make only one model flee from their units if they fail battle shock tests near them is really useful to have. Not only that, but the named character Shaman is also really useful. Gobsprak has some really cool defensive magic abilities built into him. As well as that though, we've got some ranged firepower. Now I did talk a little bit about the Bolt Boys in the start of this video, and they are an amazing option. There's particular sub-factions you can play of Kruleboyz that make them battle line, which is really cool, but you've also got the Manskewer Kruleboyz, or Beastbane Kruleboyz, whatever they're called, giant tree shooting ballista that the Kruleboyz have, and these are really good at taking down monsters. They generally get a little bit weaker depending on which monster you're facing, but against the big ones, they've got a good chance of doing half damage to a Mega Gargan, or near enough to half damage to a Mega Gargan in a single shot, which is pretty awesome. Next up, we've got the Marsh Crawler Slogoth. This is a really interesting model as it provides amazing buffs for all the units around it, whatever Auric Warclans army you are playing. A fantastic piece to add to your army, a really cool, unique looking model, I think, to add to your force. A great little buff piece that I do think most armies are going to want one of in them. Of course, when we're talking about Kruleboyz, we can't not talk about Auric Warclans as a whole. The great thing about this as a starter set is Kruleboyz is just one in many parts of the Auric Warclans. Any of the Aurics inside this army can be used inside the Big War, which is a great way to sort of spread yourself into different armies with really different looks and different playstyles. The cool models I've got pictured here are Iron Jaws models. These are much more heavily armoured Aurics that sort of a little bit more fighting and a little bit less sneaky than your Kruleboyz. They rely much more on sort of brute force than the sneaky tactics you play around with the Kruleboyz. You can play both these Iron Jaws and the Kruleboyz in Big War together, along with the Savage Aurics known as Bone Splitters as well, which are a different breed of sort of, I guess, tribalized orcs. They're much more savage, much more feral, but not quite as cunning, much more sort of feral ferocity to them. They've got some cool ranged ability to them, and generally they are the most hardy of all your Auric armies. You can bring them all together, as I mentioned, in Big War, which is really fun, and you've just got this grand sort of roster of different tiles of Aurics and different armies you can play. When you start expanding into different armies in the game, you've already got the start of something there with your Kruleboyz leaning into these other Auric armies. And lastly, what we wanted to do is we wanted to put down a video and show you a little sample army list we've put together here for the Auric Warclans. Now, first of all, we're going to obviously be playing in the Kruleboyz Allegiance. We're going to be from a Warclan called Big Yellers. This is really cool as it gives an extra 3-inch range to all our units, and it also gives us reroll ones to hit with our ranged units in the first turn. This goes really well with the units we've picked in the army, and we'll get to that in a second. The grand strategy we've chosen is Wah, and this is a really cool grand strategy as it just requires you to have either your general or one of your battle line units in your opponent's half of the or deployment zone of the table. Really simple one to do. It doesn't have to be one that started on the table. It can be a summoned in one later if that's something you can look into doing in your army list, but just a really solid, easy to achieve grand strategy. The triumph we've gone for is Indomitable. This is the one where we can ignore a battle shock test. Really important because Kruleboyz do suffer from really low bravery. Now, we've got for our leaders a Swamp Cooler Shaman with Potgra. As mentioned, he's amazing. What his ability does is makes all those mortal wounds from that special ability do it on 5s to hit instead of 6s. This really turns on the firepower of some of our units. He's going to be our general. He's going to have the generic command trait Skilled Leader, which I think is really useful for getting those extra command points in there to make sure we're ignoring battle shock tests or getting all-out defenses or all-out attacks when we need it. And then Artifact, he's going to have the Amulet of Destiny, which again is a universal one, just a 5-up ward to make sure he stays there and doesn't die. Lord of the Swamp, he's gone for the Black Pit, which is a cool sort of horde affecting one that actually gets better against the bigger hordes with a better armor save. But also, the thing with this is, because he has to give up his spellcasting to use the poisons which enable him to turn on the mortal wounds to 5s, he's not really going to use that spell all that much, so it's good to have something there that's a bit of a horde cleaner, which you don't really have in the rest of the army. For battle line, we've got 10 Gut Rippers, as mentioned. Definitely go for those spears, do not go for the hand weapons, and 6 Manskewer Bolt Boys, our one reinforced unit in the army. These are going to pair well with our Shaman to do a lot of ranged damage. We then got our 10 Hogrot Slitters, a great little screen there we can use to protect our shooting units while the Gut Rippers go up and do some killing. And then we got a Beastkewer Killboat for some extra shooting in the army, really taking advantage of that Big Yellers special rule that they get for the sub-faction. This army is all tied into a single battle regiment, which means it's going to be a 1-drop, giving you a great access to see who gets the first turn. And then it's 735 points, meaning that Triumph is likely that you're going to get it. Reinforced units, we've got the 1, no allies, 53 runes, and as mentioned, it all drops in 1. Hopefully this video has been helpful and got you some ideas of how to start up your Kruleboyz army. If you've just started with Kruleboyz, leave a comment down below and let us know how you're going with them and what you are doing with them. Love to hear from everyone. Well, that's the video, everyone. We hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you have not already. If you'd like to come chat more with me and other members of our fine little community here at Sinful Gaming, we have a Discord server which you will find a link to in the description of the video. And if you'd like to help support the channel more in a different way, you can do so either by following a link in the video to our Teespring store and purchasing some merch, or by helping support the channel via Patreon or YouTube members. As a special thanks to everyone who has supported the channel via Patreon and YouTube members, we'd like to give a shout out to all of them. So thank you to our patrons Christian Weir, James Soren, Chaos Spawn, AJC, Kenny Lyle, Outer and Shop First, Andrew Bowen, Nathan Fee, The Rising Ape, Cure Dynamic, Agu, Anthony B, MJ and Dynat226. A special shout out as well to all our YouTube members: Greenrich Gaming, Kenton Young, Steve T, The Real, Zeop, Chris Wallace, Turai12, Vinny, Lock Lorick, Matt Mollim, Becca, Kinski Groupie, The Johnny84 and El Mapache. And a special thanks as well, first of all, to Lady Witchfox Art, who does all the amazing artwork for the channel. It's absolutely amazing. People love it. I love it. She's fantastic. You can go find her on Instagram. And also a special thanks to Xmorphic, who does a great job behind the scenes for our Discord server, running everything amazingly over there for me. That's it for today, folks, though. Thank you all for watching. Stay safe, stay well, and most of all, keep fighting that war against the Grey. Ciao for now.